Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared the tower.
Hey, what's going on, you guys? We're back. Welcome to Health or High Water. What's up, Leslie?
Doing great.
What's
How
up,
are you?
Tripp?
Just mulling over this mold story from Leslie. Just poor fungus among us.
And we have Abby
It's a
Varner.
true mushroom. It really was.
And we have Abby in the studio.
DM me for the pics, peep.
And we have Abby in the studio. How you doing, Abby?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thank you so much. Network for Nana, you're super close to what we're doing, too. And I want to kind of dive right in right away. So Network for Nana, can you give me an overview of what like your mission is? What are you like trying to do? And then also the second part is that, like, what started this? Like, what was your passion? And if you could just start from there, I just want to learn a little bit about that to get us going.
Sure. So our mission, pretty simply, to kind of paraphrase, is just to be able to offer expert guidance and an education to people who are looking for senior living communities for themselves or for loved ones, and kind of pair them up. And what got me into this business is there are quite a few different things, but I would say I started in the industry about 6 years ago, right kind of when COVID started, coincidentally, like in 2019. And I started in the sales end of the business and working for different communities. And then I quickly learned that there's not a lot of information out there for people who are looking for themselves or their family members about senior living. Mm-hmm. And when you get to that stage where you're needing senior living, a lot of times the need is urgent and you need to move them right away. Mm-hmm. And so you're put in this situation of it being very difficult to find information, and yet you're kind of forced to make a very quick decision. Mm-hmm. And so my mission is to help people navigate that in a way that will pair them with the best place where they have actually all of the information they need right in front of them, and it's not as stressful as it otherwise would be.
Yeah. Is that pretty common where it's like an urgent decision? Like, what would you say versus, hey, I'm planning this. This is something, I have time.
Yeah. If I had to put a number on it, I would say 70% of the time it's like pretty urgent, and 30% of the people are kind of planning or maybe looking at independent living because they want a better social life, or maybe they just are tired of doing the housework themselves and they want more community around them. 70% of the time it usually is a more urgent situation.
Do you find like you're talking with the potential resident, so the parent versus the children, because you're working with both of them, right, in this scenario?
A lot of times, I would say most of the time I'm working with the adult children who are helping their parents or maybe a loved one, an aunt and uncle, because at the time where it's urgent, it could be maybe the potential resident is in rehab, or maybe they're having beginning signs of dementia and are unable to make these decisions for themselves. So
they're in a position that they need an advocate.
Yeah, exactly. And so for those who have children who are involved, that's wonderful. And those who don't.
No. Just speaking from experience.
Right. So,
one of my favorite things to do.
And then for those who don't, sometimes it's another member of their family, or maybe it's a close friend of a family.
Yeah. We were talking before the podcast, you were saying like how much you drive.
Yeah.
Like, can you walk me through like a typical day? I mean, there's no such thing as typical, maybe.
Yeah.
But like, what does like a day look like for you?
It varies widely. I would say I do a lot of course, networking and, advertising, and that's the business that we do, right, is getting the word out. So I go to a lot of networking events, but I go all the way to South Denver, even Colorado Springs, all the way up to Fort Collins and parts of Wyoming, Cheyenne, Laramie. So depending on the day, I try to schedule my events or what I'm doing around those. I also am always trying to stay current on the communities out there. So touring with them, meeting with the different people who work in the communities to make sure that I know firsthand what these communities have to offer, and I know the staff as well. So I'm constantly scheduling appointments with them just to stay current on all of that, which is wonderful, but it is a lot of driving.
Do you work mostly with there are facilities out there that accept long-term Medicaid, like Medicaid, Medicare facilities, or is it all like more independent, kind of outside
pay?
of that, private? Mm-hmm.
So I do work with both. I work with people who have long-term Medicaid, and I work with private pay people as well. I do not get paid from Medicaid communities,
No, wouldn't think so.
obviously, but right now I do have enough time that I'm able to do that, and I like to be able to help people because a lot of times everybody needs help, and just because you may not have the financial resources to go to a private pay community doesn't mean you don't need the same assistance. So I like to be able to provide that help.
Well, navigating the Medicaid stuff is...
That's a whole nother animal.
Job. It's a full-time job, and you almost need a legal staff, and it's not
You do.
fun. Been there, done that.
Absolutely. And the specifics of that, I would refer out to a Medicaid specialist.
Mm-hmm.
But to help somebody find the right community in their area, I can definitely assist with that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that real quick, what are like maybe 2 or 3 things that you're finding a lot of people are looking for, like like health and wellness programs, a really good music. Like what are people looking for in communities nowadays? Like what's the trending right now?
I would say the lifestyles, the activities, that is more and more important these days. Like what is the community doing to keep people involved socially and keep them active? I would say that's probably number one trending. And then, of course, care is always really number one, right? You want to know that your loved one is being cared for. That's obvious.
But they're not just sitting there waiting for...
waiting for the next meal, right?
Or the next life-changing event.
Right.
Well, we've seen some of that, too, in the communities we work with. We've seen some of that, too, where we come in and, we bring a lot of energy in, but we... see, sometimes you put a TV on, which is fine. There's no problem at all with putting the TV on, but you walk into that environment and you're like, well, man, we need some energy in this room.
Yes. And that's why I love what you guys do, too. I'm so excited about that and to learn about that. So props to you guys for doing what you do. I really see the value in that.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thanks. I got a kind of follow-up question. We all know that Denver, Colorado is one of the healthiest states in the United States. Bret and I see a lot of seniors moving to Denver, Colorado for the specialty in senior living. My question is, why Denver? What's going on here that's so different than tons of other places in the United States that typically are retiring states?
I would say that Denver specifically has had so much growth inside this industry in the recent years. That could be one of the factors. Also, a lot of the communities here are really trying to push boundaries with the norm of senior living and trying to sort of modernize
Outside of the box.
and think outside of the box a little bit. And I love that because it's needed. I mean, it's just really is. We need to get away from
Traditional way of doing it isn't so great.
Exactly. We need to get away from bingo and, grilled cheese.
Oh, I don't think you're getting. Well, I was gonna say, I don't think you're gonna get rid of it.
Listen, it's got its place.
No, I get it.
But let's put some variety in
Bingo
there.
and the bus to Walmart. Those are the two best things.
Yeah. You got to have them, but
I think that's why the boxing thing has kind of taken off, is because people are like, what? Boxing? Then they see Tripp there with the pads, and just to see the interaction is from my perspective, has been really cool.
Well, you also see a lot of like events and stuff like that being music driven, like live events, and then Bret coming in with the guitar as well, being able to like box with rhythm and those kind of things.
That's so cool.
It's just it's way different, and you see one that was the best compliment I think we've ever gotten from these classes was you can't tell the difference between memory care and independent living.
Awesome.
So like that's kind of what we're going for, is like, hey, like let's change things up. They want, like Bret said it really great. That news segment was like we could do more than just light stretching. Like they want to be challenged.
Yeah. And let's not put limitations on them, right? Let's let them make that choice for themselves. Like, what can they do? Of course they can box,
Yeah.
They gonna.
Yeah. What was that? What's something that prepared you for this? So obviously you're using a lot of your skills, with this business and being an entrepreneur. in your past careers and stuff like that, was there anything like that you really draw from experience on, or something you felt like really prepared you for this role in particular?
Well, let's see. I would say a culmination of like my whole life. I think I've always enjoyed helping people, really. And I know that sounds really cliche, but that is what it is, really. I just have always enjoyed helping people, getting to know people and their stories. And I've always gravitated towards older people in general because their stories are so cool.
Yeah.
And I think that being in leadership positions inside of the senior living community has been really, really helpful because I not only understand the customer's perspective of moving into the community, but I also understand the state regulations and the things that the community needs to make move-ins happen successfully. So I think it's a combination of a lot of customer service experience in my past, tons of sales experience in my past, and the passion for helping people and the families is really number one for me. Is just whenever I can help, I will do it. And I'm happy to be able to offer the education that I've received in the industry to other people to make their lives less stressful and to make the transition easier, because it's not an easy one for most people.
Yeah, so talk about that move-in, if you don't mind. What's that move-in like? I mean, because from the outside perspective, it's just, okay, you're moving in, but it's got to be a huge process.
Right.
Like, you're changing homes. What is that like, and how do you insert yourself? Are you helping? How does that work?
Yeah, great question. There's a lot to it. And of course, it depends on what level of care somebody's moving into and what they're moving from. And that would make a difference on the transition itself. But for anyone moving into assisted living or memory care, there's going to be a series of different paperwork that has to be completed and obtained by the community. So they're going to need doctor's orders and most forms and lease agreement signing, of course. The community would also have to perform an assessment in person on the potential resident who's moving in. So the nurse would have to come out and make sure that the person is appropriate for the level of care they're moving into.
What happens if they're out of state?
Out of state, that's a good question. So there are communities, and most communities can arrange in that instance for a virtual assessment. Like on the other side, somebody can FaceTime or maybe Zoom with the resident to ask the questions and go through the visual process they need to assess them
Would
virtually.
they take it, even like, could they meet with their doctor or speak with somebody, medical staff on that end as well?
They typically would talk to, if they're coming from another medical community, like maybe a hospital or another assisted living or memory care community, they could talk to someone else, but they would definitely have to meet with the potential resident themselves, either virtually or in person. Okay. Beforehand too.
I know it might change, like you said, between memory care, assisted living, or independent. So the answer might change. But how do the leases work? I mean, is it standard to have like a 1-year lease, a 5-year lease? Like, how does that typically work?
That's a good question too. So with most all senior living communities, it's going to be a 30-day notice that you would need to give in order to move out. So that would be pretty consistent amongst independent assisted memory care. Even skilled communities, that's what you would need, is just to give it the 30-day written notice.
So
What would happen
there
Just a monthly.
until you leave?
Well, what would happen? Like, how would it work if like a resident passes on? Like, how would that work?
So that is kind of dependent on the community. They typically have different policies on that, or so sometimes it's, when they pass, they're going to, that would be their quote unquote move out day. Sometimes it's a few days after you need to get furniture and stuff.
That was funny to me. Sorry.
That's the one that, it is what it is, right?
It is what it is, yeah.
For sure.
That is one way that people move out sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, we've had residents in our class that have no longer been at class, and
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is. It's
definitely.
really hard. It's emotionally a tough industry to be in that way.
Yeah, shout out to all the caregivers out there.
Yeah.
My gosh, do I respect what they do so much. Every time we go in, we're so nice and just grateful for them.
Yeah.
The
Absolutely.
staff. We had Tom Finley was on here on the podcast, and I was like, hey, so can you shout out? I told him, so him and his wife own a scent, and I was like, can you shout out someone you're thinking of who's done just an incredible job? He shouted out, he's like, all the care staff. He's like, that makes the world go round. I'm like, yeah, I totally get that.
Amen. Yeah.
I totally get that. Sorry, I'm running over my time. Hey, we got to take a quick commercial break for our sponsors. Hey, fitness fans, ever dread the chalky taste of your usual creatine supplement? Let me introduce you to something revolutionary, Swoley Creatine Gummies. Yeah, you heard that right, gummies. They aren't just delicious. They pack all the punch you need to boost your workout without any of the hassle. Imagine looking forward to your creatine boost with flavors that make you feel like you're cheating on your diet in a good way. Swoley gummies are third-party tested for quality you can trust, and they're incredibly convenient. Just pop a few and you're good to go. No mixing, no mess. And because you're part of our podcast family, I've got a sweet deal for you. Head over to getswoley.com and use code HOHW. That's HOHW to get 20% off your first order. Treat yourself to a tastier way to stay fit with Swoley Creatine Gummies. Your muscles will thank you. Right, Tripp?
Well, they were thinking of me this morning. I was having a really hard time finishing my breakfast. I was like, I want my Swoley gummies.
Do you take creatine?
I don't. Maybe I should.
I mean, I've heard everybody should do it.
Everybody.
Those actually aren't bad. They're kind of like having a snack.
Right.
They
I
really
do
are.
take snacks, so maybe I should take some.
I was sitting here eating. I was like, I think I'll just eat some of these while I'm waiting for you guys. I was like, it's so dangerous. You move those onto that side of the table because I already had my 5.
I will tell you, they do taste amazing.
They're delicious.
So I have a question for you regarding the move-in. A resident's moving into a new community. Obviously, you've done a great job looking at and communicating, hey, here's what it's going to look like moving in. Here are the activities they're going to have. Here's what the food is going to look like. Here's the experience. You're reassuring the family. You're going through this whole process. How does the fitness element play? Because we're fitness guys. How does the fitness element play into it? Obviously, they have classes. But is there a way that... Are there any communities out there that build in that you've heard of, that build in like personal fitness into it? So they say, hey, your mother can work with a personal trainer twice a week. Here's her move-in stuff. And then here's, her personal trainer is going to cost X amount or whatever. Is that something you see?
I would say that, when they're moving into maybe assisted living or independent living, memory care, that's not something typically that the communities would set up or arrange. A lot of times, though, when people do move in, they do bring their physical therapy with them from wherever they're coming from. So if they're coming from home, they'll continue to work with that physical therapist in the community typically, and that person would help them set up their fitness routine. I think there is some great opportunity out there for communities to be more hands-on with this, but because of everyone's individualized needs and because of maybe lack of the appropriate staff, a lot of them don't have physical therapists on staff. They might have physical therapy that works out of the building, but that's a totally separate sort of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is we have certain communities we work with that, sometimes they'll say, yeah, a resident is getting acclimated, and they'll come to us when they're ready for fitness or when they're ready to take a consultation. And I'm always confused about that because it must be a hard process to approach, especially as a new resident, to be like, hey, now I want to start working out. That must be a hard process. I'm just curious at why that isn't addressed at move-in date. The other thing, too, is like physical therapy, I think, is different than personal training too, right? Because physical therapy, they're usually dealing with like an injury, like, hey, we're rehabbing a shoulder or this or that, but sometimes some people like personal training. I'm just wonder why that isn't more common.
Well, because you're really getting into more preventive care, right? Like this more preventive, hey, listen, like we're getting ahead of falls and fall risk and those kind of things and addressing individual problems, and classes are great, don't get me wrong, like they're perfect, but like having someone like, hey, Mrs. Farnacle has a terrible hip. What are we doing?
Who?
Barnacle?
Yeah, that was a strange-
Barnacle?
We're spitballing
Where
names
have you
today.
ever heard a
What
last
about
name?
Johnson or Smith?
South Park?
Or,
Oh.
Oh, thinking SpongeBob,
well, and I
maybe.
think though too, when you're initially coming into a community, though, it's typically like 70% a crisis situation. So they're
Yeah.
not thinking about how am I going to work out today. I think most families are thinking about that their family is going to get taken care of and their immediate need, and then at some point it might change.
Yeah, I mean,
just speaking from like the times I've dealt with it, it was never a concern in my mind. It was more like, are they actually going to get taken care of? Like
Yeah.
that was my.
yeah, I would say it's probably not the first thing they're thinking of a lot of times if they're not already in a routine to, you know, to
I mean,
work
if they're
out.
shopping a place, people who are like planning for the future, that might come up. I could see
Yeah.
that.
I think it'd be awesome as an opportunity for, you know, someone like yourselves who are in this business of helping seniors in working out and all of that to be able to offer as a bonus when people move in, hey, call these guys. They can set up you know, they'll spend a consultation or they'll give you a consultation for free, help you set up these classes. I think that's a great opportunity for people who provide that service. It's just that most of the communities don't have anyone who might be qualified to actually do the service, like provide the service.
That makes perfect sense. With like what you're doing right now, is there an area you see of like huge opportunity for yourself? Not necessarily something you could do better, but something where you're like, I'm going to invest a lot of energy in this part of my business, or this part of the service is missing, I think, in a lot of other, you know, senior care placement companies.
You know, there is a ton of opportunity out there to kind of expand and grow and offer more services myself. And the idea behind when I started this was to be able to be a true network for people. So Network for Nana, hence the name, is to be able to provide, if I can't provide you the service, I will have the network that I can refer you to the right person,
Right.
get you in the right hands. But to be able to offer some more of those services myself, so possibly real estate in the future, or being able to be a care manager for people to continue helping families on that one-on-one basis. And a lot of times when people move into senior living, as you know, they need to sell their home in order to have the funds.
The financial piece of it.
Right. So that's a big portion of it. I did have my real estate license once upon a time, so it's in my wheelhouse to do that. So that is something that might be coming in the future to be able to offer that as well alongside.
That's a huge thing. So what's the future hold for a business? Are you looking for more employees, as well as kind of a follow up with that? What's your perfect networking situation with some of these other companies, albeit senior communities, like you said, just these different portions of senior care?
Yeah, so definitely hoping to expand in the next year or two and grow, having more people working with me who can provide the same service in maybe different areas. So I don't have to drive quite as much would be amazing. And then I would say, what was the second part of your question?
I agree with that, by the way. The
I don't
second
know.
part, I was like, what?
What's your ideal networking situation?
Oh, right. Oh gosh. You know, there's so much opportunity in networking for what I do, because everyone knows someone who needs my service or will need, or like it's relevant everywhere. So not just within my own industry, but outside, everybody knows somebody who needs it. So I'm always networking. You can network anywhere, everywhere, all the time. But, you know, with home health services, I network a lot with some great companies who provide home health. And of course, their goal usually is to keep people at home and not moving into communities. However, there does come a time when it is not reasonable for someone to stay at home. They really do need that 24-hour oversight. For whatever reason, it could be a dementia diagnosis. It could be just the needs are higher and it doesn't make financial sense to pay for home health. At a certain point, it's cheaper to move into long-term care. So I network a lot with home health companies, and also with assisted living, memory care, independent senior living communities themselves, because a lot of times they're full and they can't take any more people. And so when they get calls from families who need help, it's a great opportunity for them to be able to say, call her and she'll be able to help you find a place.
Do you have any of like the smaller private home kind of situations too? Where
Absolutely.
There's like 6 to 8 people in a house kind of?
It's a great question. And that's one of the discovery questions that I always ask people. You need to find out kind of what their social preference is. Do they prefer a larger community where there's a ton of stuff going on, or are they kind of a smaller home type of person who doesn't want a lot going on and they want kind of quiet? So there are a lot of really great senior living communities that are small that I work with that are awesome option to have for the right person.
Tripp?
Well, we're getting to be about that time here, y'all. It's already been that
I
time.
almost said it's Tuesday, but it's Monday.
It's Monday.
My bad.
Thanks, you guys. So if people want to find you, obviously Network for Nana website, correct?
Yes, networkfornana.com.
Ooh, perfect. You got the domain. Networkfornana.com, you guys. You can go on there and request a consultation, correct?
Absolutely.
And they will get you, and then they can set up an appointment. And then you'll take them through, ask them a bunch of questions. And
Are
we'll
you Googling it right now?
Yeah, because I wanted to tell them what it would look like.
Sorry for Tripp's,
for
Bret's delayed speech there. He was typing and talking.
You'll see some incredibly. That's a great picture. That's a good website. I like it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And then there's a bunch of resources, mission statement, services. There's a bunch of good stuff. So get on there, you guys. Network for Nana. If you have any questions, they can reach out to you individually before the process. Final words? Anything you want to add to wrap the episode up?
I don't know, when you put me on the spot like that every time,
That's
and
not
my
on
brain
the spot.
goes
You have a microphone. Yeah, it's not on the spot.
every time.
Tripp?
You guys know
Yeah.
I'm the winging it part of this show.
So we got a few new countries. We've been kind of adding countries week
this is
after
our
week.
favorite part, everybody.
It's our
Great.
favorite
Welcome,
part.
potties. Welcome.
We have Lithuania that joined the fold here.
Yeah.
Hey, listen. We
So
also
that out-of-state stuff I was asking
You work
about.
with any communities in Lithuania?
Not yet, but
we have a great networking opportunity.
yeah.
We have a few more from Albania. That's really cool. Thank you guys so much. We're getting quite a few from Japan. So konnichiwa. Thank you guys.
Oh my God.
What?
I busted out. Look
It
at
says
me
hi.
crazy.
It's hi.
Wait,
It's hi in Japanese.
yeah,
No, that's
I
fine.
just
I
didn't
just-
know you were that, like, I don't know, fluent with different
Cultured?
languages.
Cultured? Yeah, I'm kind of cultured.
You're cultured.
Kind of. Not really. All right.
We
We got
have gone off
Japan, Albania. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, and sharing this with all your friends and family. Every bit helps. And thank you guys so much.
Abby, thanks for coming in. Thanks for taking your time.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. We'll put all your stuff in the link below. So, get on that website. Take care, you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.